Cherrytree Radio. Welcome to Cherrytree Radio as Martin interviews Donnie Wahlberg, conducted backstage before the New Kids on the Block show and heard exclusively on Cherrytree Radio.
Was it always this way? Were you organically friends with the Backstreet Boys, or did this sort of develop across the years? Or how did this collaboration come about?
Some of the guys in New Kids knew Backstreet Boys, knew some of them or all of them. I had never met any of them till Radio City Music Hall last year. The sort of story of how the tour came to be, it started with a conversation, in my opinion, because everyone has their own truth in the world, but it started in a conversation on our 2009 full-service tour. Our promoters wanted us to have an opening act, you know, a real pop opening act, and Backstreet Boys were presented as an option. And I shot it down. And the reaction from everybody else was, why are you shooting it down? Do you dislike Backstreet Boys? Are you enemies with them? And I said, no. I said, I just think you're selling them short. You're selling the combination of New Kids and Backstreet Boys short, just to have them be an opening act. You know, nobody would really want to go see Joe Frazier fight Muhammad Ali in 2011. I mean, fight a no-name. Nobody would want to see him fight a no-name in 2011 in some bar. But if you said Joe Frazier's going to fight Muhammad Ali and they're both 70, people would want to see it because they know the history of those two guys. And it's certainly not a fair comparison, but it was just one of those things. I just believed if New Kids and Backstreet teamed up, it's 1 + 1 = 3. It's not 1 + 1 = 2. And they're not an opening act for us, man. They have massive records, and if you put their records with our records, it's suddenly like, 30 top 10 records.
But was it your idea to integrate the show? Because that's what's so magic.
The show's a creative. And I don't want to take the credit for the idea. That was just my reaction. Was they shouldn't be our opening act. And then our manager, who's a brilliant guy, Jared Paul, he never let that go. So months later, he came to me and said, I've been talking to Backstreet's management about what you said, and we think we might be able to do something. And that led us to Radio City, where we had them come out on stage and join us for I Want It That Way. Now, the crowd reaction at Radio City is what, to me, sold it. And that's really what made the tour possible, because we've been in the business for so long. We've seen everything. There's nothing surprises us anymore. And the crowd reaction that night, I'd never seen it before. I've never seen a crowd with that look on their face of like, no, you didn't.
That's how I feel the show was in Kansas City that I saw a couple of days ago.
Right.
That's what's so remarkable about it.
Yeah, the putting the tour together creatively, I think what happened was it just happened. Once we announced the tour, nobody knew what we were going to do. It was just like, we're going to tour together. And it could have been, we flip a coin and see who opens each night. But when we had to do the American Music Awards as our first sort of big TV appearance, I worked with our two music directors on putting an idea together for the show. I had always heard this mashup of Hangin' Tough and Backstreet's Back in my head. I knew the lyrics could trade off, real cool. Mm-hmm. And they worked together. And so I figured that would be a good way to start. And then it just became about building it. And so we sat in the studio and built it. And Howie and AJ came by and, gave us some input. And what we did that night on the American Music Awards was sort of a 5-minute thing. And as it came time to start putting the tour together, my thinking became, everyone was scattered. Backstreet was on tour. New Kids were all over the place. I was in New York shooting Blue Bloods. But, I had to sort of start really putting my mind to what the show was going to be. And it just seemed like obvious that rather than do something crazy, why not just take what we did, which we knew worked on the AMAs, and stretch it out over 2 hours. If you watch that 5-minute performance, we start together, we separate, we join back up, we separate again, we come back for a grand finale and end in a huge epic way. And that's what the tour is, but it's just relentless. We talked about pace. Like I would always talk with Brian and it would be like, it's got to be jab, New Kids, right hand, Backstreet Boys, jab, New Kids, right hand, Backstreet Boys, and then boom, we come out together for Larger Than Life, and it's like a huge knockout punch. And then we let them relax a little bit, and then we come with slow songs, and we hit them with these, and you hit them with those, and really we talked about it being a boxing match. And in the championship rounds, in the 12th round, we come out to finish off,
This is Martin, and you're listening to the Donnie Wahlberg interview special on Cherrytree Radio. Them.
even how they developed as personalities in their group, that you were a template for them.
Right.
How does that feel?
It's cool. I mean, I've always said that they've been pretty generous about, acknowledging our influence on them, especially since we've worked together. And truthfully, somebody had asked me, a writer, I think from People Magazine, said, they didn't always acknowledge you guys in the past. And I understand that. And what I mean is, it didn't ever offend me if Backstreet Boys didn't acknowledge us. I understood because I know from the moment they were assembled, every interview they did, they had to answer a question about us.
Yeah.
And eventually they became famous, and eventually 4 years into their run or 4 years into their existence, they're like 19, 20-year-old kids. They're tired of answering the damn question about us. It's like, let us be us now. So I never took offense to that. I understood it because we went through the same thing.
I was just going to say, only someone that had gone through that would appreciate that.
Exactly. So I never took any offense to that. I didn't expect them to acknowledge us. If someone said, who inspired you to become a singer and be in a band like this? And, the answer's Jodeci. Well, I love Jodeci too, but,
You played on the back row?
New Edition was my inspiration.
You played them on the back row.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what? I've always thought that that's what makes you so successful. I mean, aside from your talent, number one, in all the different fields that you pursue, that you go through experiences, you glean from them, and then you apply that. You're very smart, and I think that's why you're so successful at acting and music and producing and being a record executive, because you're able to pick up things as you go and then apply them. That's impressive. I learned a lot from you.
I try to do that. Well, that's a compliment from you, obviously, because I think you're the most underrated music mind in the business, and you're not even underrated
that's
anymore.
That's because you're acting and on tour right now.
No, you're not even underrated anymore. But it just is what it is, man. It's like I'm also trying to be honest. I know when we were like 1992 rolled around, MTV hated us, radio hated us, people stopped playing us. There was just overload. So when 1996 or 7 rolls around and Backstreet Boys are getting ready to drop, in my mind it's like, how are those kids going to break down the walls that were put up behind us? People put up walls. They were sick of us. So they had to break them down. So I give them, on one, open the door and led the way for them, but the doors were locked behind us, man, and nobody was getting through, and they were the first ones to get through. And they get credit for that. And that, to me, that's, I don't know if it's a gift or if it's I'm just trying to be honest with myself. And if I was honest with myself when Backstreet Boys came out, then I'd have to say they did it. Whoever put them together, however it happened, it doesn't matter. Those kids had to keep showing up to the fight. Mm-hmm. And they had to go to every radio station in America that did not want to see 5 singing pretty boys come walking through the door. And they showed up anyway, and they made it.
That's what I always say when people say, do you hate them? Do you hate them? And I'm like, not the Backstreet Boys, but any other band that maybe I'm not involved with. I always go, this game is too hard to hate on anybody.
Right.
You got to respect anybody who gets through and reaches an audience and develops an audience for themselves. I know this game. It's hard.
Yeah, it's too easy to sit on the sidelines, and if you're bashing other people, you're probably upset about something. It probably has nothing to do with the music business. You probably just got issues.
This is Martin, and you're listening to the Donnie Wahlberg interview special on Cherrytree Radio.
From your fans on cherrytreerecords.com. Do you mind if I ask you?
Yeah.
Okay, let's start with this one.
There's usually a party on Cherrytree on the Morning Orchard, man. It's usually festive and everyone's, full of spirit. We're kind of getting into it here.
All right, this is from mine. What artist would you want to collaborate with?
It's hard to say. I mean, I think on the Block album, we collaborated with all the people I would want to, Obviously, New Edition was incredible. Neo, Akon was unbelievable. I love Akon. I think he's a completely underrated songwriter and talent. And of course, Gaga. We worked with her before she was known.
Yes, you did.
It's like, it would be nice to have that poker chip still in our pocket, no pun intended, but, to have it and say, hey, Gaga, let's do that song we always wanted to do now. But I'm very proud of the fact that we did it then. Most people would say, too bad you didn't do that song with her now, that she's the biggest star in the world. But to me, it's like, no, it says more that we did it when she wasn't, because we believed in her.
And she opened for you on your tour.
Yeah, and we loved that she believed in us. That was She was a young kid, you know. She could have come in the studio and said, who are these old dudes? And she was like, I love you guys. Donnie, I want to sing on this song. I love this song you wrote. And then next thing you know, she said, I want to come in and write with you in Red One. So me and Red One's next writing session, she showed up and we wrote full service for New Kids and New Edition.
Somewhere in the middle of that, you pulled out your backup voice.
Yeah. Yeah, every time I speak to her, I still do it. I saw her at a concert in Boston. I was like, how you doing? What's up, Gaga?
All right, Marcy L. asks, what is your favorite animated movie?